What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Alright guys, so we are going to continue our coverage over Secret Invasion. Now remember, when it comes to Secret Invasion, it was this big storyline that Marvel gave us back in 2008. It was a way for Marvel to try something new, something interesting with the Skrull race. Now remember, the Skrulls are this alien race that has the ability to shapeshift. Now the reason why they use the Skrulls is because what the Skrulls did was they went to Earth and basically kidnapped people and then replaced those people by pretending to be those people on Earth. And so you had no idea if your friend or wife or husband had been replaced by a Skrull. And the Skrulls were doing this as a way to kind of bring down the Earth defenses so that they can do a full-on invasion down the road. Now, the reason why the Skrulls are doing this invasion is because, well, they were for two reasons. One, they were told years ago that in one of their prophecies that the Earth would be theirs one day down the road. The second reason why, because the Illuminati basically went to the home world of the Skrulls and told the Skrulls, hey, if you ever come back to Earth, we'll do some heavy damage to your people here on your home world. And so the Skrulls did not like the idea of that threat. And so those are the two reasons why the Skrulls are basically doing this invasion. Now, in today's video, we're going to figure out when did Hank Pym and Elektra were replaced by the Skrulls. Because remember, at the end of Secret Invasion #1, we saw Hank Pym basically take out Reed Richards, which told us that Hank Pym right there is not our Hank Pym. That is a Skrull. But on top of that, the reason why we have Secret Invasion going on is because the new Avengers found a dead body of Elektra. Except the Elektra they found was a Skrull. And that is another question. When did Elektra get kidnapped? And so those two questions are going to be answered right now in this video right here. When did Hank Pym get replaced? When did Elektra get replaced? And so here is today's video. And so to begin today's storyline, we actually do pick up with Hank Pym. Now, this actually takes place in the past to kind of tell us when did Hank Pym actually get replaced and when does it fall in line in the Marvel timeline. Now, with Hank Pym right now at this moment, we do see him right now doing some kind of seminar, some kind of lecture. Now, at the end of his lecture, you do have certain people begin to ask him different questions like, hey, what about this? What about that? It all ties into his topic about genetics. But then a young lady at the end, she asked him a question about the Avengers and why did the Avengers break up, which tells us that this moment right here does pick up after Avengers disassembled, but right before the new Avengers came together. Either way, though, it's Hank Pym telling her, honestly, I think the Avengers are just taking a break. They'll be back very soon, which honestly, they do come back. But then we see that Hank Pym and this young girl, they do make eye contact and show that they do find each other very attracted to each other. Now, the next section really does show the relationship between Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyke. And what I mean is that when it comes to Janet and Hank, they used to be married to one another until, of course, you had Hank basically slap his wife, and it led to him being an abusive husband and also them kind of going through this trial period of, well, multiple trial periods of seeing that if the two characters could get back together and kind of reestablish their relationship. Now, with that being said, though, right now we're kind of seeing that these two characters have moved to a different area in America, and once again, they're trying to reconnect with one another to see if they are able to actually get back to that power couple once again. The problem is, though, when you do have Janet come home drunk, it makes Hank Pym very angry. And so you have Hank Pym hating the idea of his wife coming home drunk after being out with a group of friends. And so he tells her to go to bed. But the reason why I'm pointing this out is because it shows that even though they're trying to see if they're actually able to kind of reestablish their love life once again between each other, it doesn't work out, because in the morning you do have Hank Pym wake up to a note by Janet saying that she had basically left him. And it shows that once again, they're unable to actually, establish that relationship with one another once again. And so right after Janet had basically left Hank once again, you have Hank actually link up with the female student that we saw earlier in this video. The one who had asked him that question about why did the Avengers break up? Why did we get Avengers disassembled? But now we see that these two characters are now laying in bed together naked, which honestly, we saw it coming in the first section because they looked at each other like, I like you and you like me. Now, she does ask him about his status, like, are you married? Are you single? Are you divorced? What in the world is going on with you and Janet? And of course, he tells her we are married, but we are technically separated. And we keep trying over and over again, but it does not work out. And for her, it's kind of like, great, this is my chance to actually get close to him and to hopefully replace Janet. Now, that is also the moment she wonders if he is going to leave for New York. And the reason why, because back in New York, you right now have the new Avengers announcing themselves to the public, which tells us that this section takes place at the same time the new Avengers came together. And so you have Hank say, no, I'm staying here. That's their thing. That's that Avenger group, not my group. I'm staying over here. And for her, this is great once again, because now she knows he is going to stay and he's now single again. And so you do have Hank actually ask this young female, do you want to have dinner? And she, of course, says yes. Now we see that over time, you do have the two characters actually spending time with one another. But while the two characters are actually spending time with one another, you actually do see this young female student begin to ask Hank Pym different questions about his past life being Ant-Man or being Yellow Jacket. It's really her trying to learn more about Hank Pym, which honestly, that right there should be some red flags right there, because honestly, why is this girl so interested into your superhero life while you guys are out in the middle of doing things as a couple? And so for Hank, it's kind of like, oh, it's okay. I'll go ahead and give the answers that she is looking for. But at the same time, this is a young girl who's basically gathering information about Hank Pym. Now, when we actually do see the two characters once again, we actually do see them right now kind of staying in for the night, eating a bowl of ice cream, and talking to one another about Skrulls. And this is the young girl showing that she's very intrigued about the Skrulls and want to learn more about them. Now, while she is talking to him, he's basically giving her all the information she needs to know about the Skrulls, the Kree-Skrull War, their abilities, and where they come from, like all the different things she needs to know about the Skrulls. Now, while this conversation is going on, you then have Hank Pym actually talk bad about the Skrulls. And that right there was a mistake, because this young female student is kind of like, I don't think they're that bad. But for Hank Pym, he's kind of like, I fought against them. I know how bad they are. I know what they've done in the past. Like, basically, they are bad. And so that is the moment we come to find out the young female student is actually a Skrull. And she was sent here to basically take out Hank Pym. And so it does lead into a small battle between the two characters, but it does end up with the Skrull being able to knock out Hank Pym. And this shows us and tells us that basically this is the moment where Hank Pym was replaced by a Skrull. Now, you do have Janet actually come back to see Hank. The problem is, though, Hank is knocked out. And so you do have our Skrull here being able to shapeshift back into the body of the young female student, open the door to just send Janet away. Because now you have Janet thinking that her husband has basically moved on, found somebody else, and sooner or later they're going to get divorced. And so she just left just like that. But it shows us that she has no idea that her husband has been replaced or has been captured right now at this moment by a Skrull. And so as we get into the next section, we actually do see the Skrulls turning a Skrull into Hank Pym. Now, once they do that, we kind of find out that this was not actually part of their plan. Like, Hank Pym was not one of the many people that they were actually worried about, or they did not have Hank Pym on their plan to replace. Like, they were going to leave Hank Pym off the board completely. But because this one particular Skrull felt like Hank Pym is somebody very important who could actually help the Skrulls win their invasion, they had no choice but to turn this Skrull into Hank Pym. And we kind of find out very quickly why this Skrull had automatically assumed that Hank Pym was going to be a very valuable asset. Because you then have to remember what happened at the very beginning of Mighty Avengers. Because remember, for a long time, not really a long time, but for a good period of time, you had one Avengers title in the early 2000s, which was New Avengers. But by 2006 or 7, you then had the Mighty Avengers appear. And the Mighty Avengers was a separate team that came out of Civil War. And remember, in Civil War, it was basically a law that said if you're going to be a hero, you have to register and basically work for the American government. And so you had two Avengers team. One, the Mighty Avengers, actually liked the law and worked with the law. The New Avengers at that point after Civil War said, no, that law is fake, it's wrong, and it's completely bad for superheroes. And so they fought against the law. Now, the Mighty Avengers series, their first story dealt with Ultron. And we kind of find out the whole Ultron attack was basically done by this fake Hank Pym. And with this fake Hank Pym using the Ultron attack, it did learn that basically every information or intel they had on Iron Man's armor was outdated. That thanks to Ultron being able to hack into Tony Stark's system, they learned everything else new about Iron Man. How now he has gone more organic when it comes to his Iron Man suit. And they also learned how to actually weaken the suit. And so now it shows why Hank Pym is such a great asset, because Hank Pym was one of the people that helped create Ultron. And so when Ultron attacked, it was the perfect time for him to jump in and to basically take over. But the Ultron attack was actually planned by Hank Pym. And so it's this fake Hank Pym using his abilities of the real Hank Pym to gather the intel the Skrulls need to actually win this invasion. But now it's time for us to figure out, when did Elektra get kidnapped? When was Elektra replaced by a Skrull? Now, we actually jump back months ago, where we actually pick up with Elektra. And this is Brian Michael Bendis tying back into what happened in New Avengers Volume 1. Now remember, back in New Avengers Volume 1, you basically had Elektra talking to somebody about a huge plan. Now, we had no idea who that person that he was actually talking to, but they hired Elektra to basically cause a huge distraction at one of the prisons that was holding a bunch of different kinds of supervillains in. And of course, thanks to Elektra distraction, most of those villains were able to escape. Now, we come to find out the person that Elektra was talking to is Elektra. And that right there is kind of like, wait a second. Because by this point in Marvel Comics, Elektra was an anti-hero. Good and bad, but most of the time good. Now, with that being said, though, she's the one who had hired Electro to actually go to that prison, cause a huge blackout, which then led to a bunch of supervillains being able to escape. But the question is, though, why did Elektra hire Electro to actually do that? And so now we know that at this moment right here, that could have not been Elektra. It had to be a Skrull that had already replaced her. But then we jump back even farther back in time, where we actually pick up with Elektra right now, kind of just doing one of her usual ninja things, meditating. Either way, though, that is the moment she is confronted by another Elektra. And it's kind of like, wait a second, why do we have two Elektras? Now, we already know that the other Elektra that had just appeared, it is clearly a Skrull, because this Elektra is wearing a different color to kind of help us out as readers to know who is who. But as the fight goes on between these two Elektras, the one that appeared that's in a darker color outfit, she turns her head into Ghost Rider, which tells us that this is not the real Elektra, the one we saw at the very beginning of this section, the one that was meditating, that was our Elektra. Either way, though, you do have the two Elektras actually battle against one another. But while you have the two Elektras battling against one another, it does end up with our Elektra actually killing off the fake Elektra. And when she does that, of course, we do get confirmation that the other Elektra was just a Skrull. Now, when she does leave that fake Elektra behind and goes on the rooftop, she is confronted by Wolverine and Daredevil. Now, these are two characters who do have close ties with Elektra, especially Daredevil. But we already know that this is not Daredevil, that this is not Wolverine, because you have the two characters begin to actually fight against Elektra, and Elektra knows that basically the Skrulls are coming after her. They already sent in one, that one failed, and now they're sending in two more to hopefully outnumber me, to hopefully win, and to basically capture me. And so it's her trying to fight back against these two other Skrulls who are right now pretending to be Wolverine and Daredevil. Now, while the battle does go on, you do have Elektra actually being able to defeat these two guys. The problem is, though, you do have another Skrull appear, being able to actually defeat Elektra. And so there goes Elektra right there. She was defeated by the Skrulls months before the supervillains had broke out of that prison back in New Avengers Volume 1. But several weeks after the moment we do see Elektra actually get taken out, we do see Elektra actually meeting up with the Queen of the Skrulls. Now remember, the Queen of the Skrulls also replaced somebody on Earth. And right now, most of the clues basically tell us that she had replaced Spider-Woman. That the entire time we thought we had Spider-Woman on the New Avengers, it was actually the Queen of the Skrulls pretending to be Spider-Woman. Either way, though, you do have the two female characters actually meeting up, the fake Elektra and the fake Spider-Woman, the two Skrulls. And we come to find out that these two Skrulls are actually in a relationship with one another, but you do have the Queen right now very worried for the fake Skrull that is pretending to be Elektra. And the reason why, because it seems like they have basically planned her death. They plan her to die, and they plan for the New Avengers or somebody to actually find her. The problem is, though, if she does die, the Queen no longer has her girlfriend. But she realized what her girlfriend has to do if they want their plan to actually be done, their invasion to actually go well. But we also have to remember that when it came to Elektra, Elektra at that point in Marvel Comics was in control of the hand. Well, we come to find out that our Elektra, the one we had and knew about for years and years and years, was not in control of the hand. It was the Skrull that had gained control of the hand. Because with the Skrull pretending to be her, she went back to the hand, this evil ninja organization that basically worships a demon for their god. But either way though, it came to the Skrull Elektra going back to the hand and breaking the hand free away from Hydra, because the hand was working for Hydra, and to this fake Elektra, that is a huge downgrade for the hand to basically work for an organization like Hydra. And so you did have the hand test this fake Skrull Elektra, but you do have this fake Elektra being able to actually win the battle against the hand, to regain control of the hand. And so when we saw the new Avengers being confronted by Elektra in the hand, it wasn't our Elektra. It was a Skrull Elektra who had regained control of the hand and was using the hand for her own personal needs. But with that being said though, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.